Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode. As always, I'm very excited with the guest that I have, and today is no exception. Of course, the returning guest is the only Cristina Fernandes over here in the Waterloo District School Board. She does a ton of great work. A really good friend of mine, just fighting alongside her. And, there's a lot of things that have been happening. I've been gone on a family trip to
Mm.
Romania. And as I was away, a lot of events have unfolded, and I've watched a couple meetings, and I'm just here with Cristina basically to bring me up to speed with what has been happening and to bring you up to speed. And what I wanted to discuss in particular was the Million March protests, what it means for
Mm.
parents, and the way that the Waterloo District School Board handled the situation. Before we get into that, without further ado, Cristina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, David, for everything you're doing. Thanks for having me on again. It's been
Absolutely.
a long time.
It's always a pleasure. And you've been extremely busy. And I've tried to stay off social media while I was away, take a little bit of a break.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know that in my end, there hasn't been too much happening on social media either. There's so much happening on the back end that, I mean, there's a lot of distractions happening as well, I think, on social media right now. So just keep on doing what we're doing. Just keep on doing the good stuff. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm really excited with everything because it feels like, from my perspective, parents just can't stop winning. And I'm really
Yeah.
happy with the work that we're doing. And a lot of parents are catching on to what's happening in the education system and finding other ways to deal with it, pulling their kids out of school, having conversations, delegating at the school board,
Yeah.
and it's great.
Yeah, there's so much happening. And, I'm just trying to think of when you left, and because you had delegated, what was that, the 16th? And then that was when the motions were presented, right? Those two motions specifically for the books, age appropriateness, filtration to keep porn basically away from 6-year-olds, which I mean, we all know what happened there. Well, you know what happened there. But for your audience, for those who haven't been seeing that, they basically shut that down. Like they shut it down. Like for those who don't know what's going on, we didn't ask about taking any books out. We didn't even go there. All we asked was that the filtration system for elementary, middle school, and high school match the same filtration system that would be in the physical library. So a 6-year-old can't walk into their library in elementary school and pull out a book from their shelves that would be in high school. I think that anyone with any sort of logical sense would be like, of course, like that makes sense. There's no argument. Why would there be an argument there? But for the Waterloo Region District School Board, we have an argument there that it's not appropriate. It's hateful. It's book banning. When we talk about the age appropriateness, when we have the experts coming in explaining the thorough, selection process that they have, we say, sure, okay, that you have your selection process, you have your thorough selection process. Would you agree that it is a good process? Why not just utilize the same process we use for the physical libraries for our virtual libraries? And then, oh, well, the kids aren't accessing the book. First, they would argue, if you go back, first their argument is that they can't access it. Okay. And then when we say, but they can, and you show them, oh, but they won't access it. Guys, like this is, as I don't welcome this behavior. It doesn't make me happy. But I am grateful for it because it is so clear. Like it is so clear. The contrast of to me, pure evil, is the clarity that we need, like to what's going on. So you
Absolutely.
left, and then you missed the ratification. So what happens at a board meeting is they present, they present it at some point, usually a committee of a whole meeting, which, they usually have 2 to 3 board meetings a month. Things are being discussed. Maybe motions are presented. Delegations are able to be heard at that time. If you put in for a delegation, then someone would let you know when you're to speak about that. And then at the last board meeting, it's usually when things get ratified, which means like the trustees would be able to have a sober thought about what happened prior to that. More parents would be able to send in emails or phone calls and be able to share their voice and, oh, I saw what happened at that board meeting. This is what I think. This is how it's impact my children, and so on and so forth. And then they're able to have another discussion if it's brought back on the table, which Trustee Cindy Watson did that. She put it back on the table because I delegated again on that issue, responding to some of the things G1 had mentioned following our delegations. And just because it was just like and thanks for posting that. You posted that delegation because it was like, we're not having the same conversation here. My main question is, why is it that when we talk about sexualization, like sexualized content in books, that is automatically associated with this labeled LGBTQIA2+ community? Like, where is the connection? Like, does a child see themselves in sexually explicit material? And like, my question is like, does anyone? And if they do, like, why are we doing that in schools? Like, it has nothing to do with somebody's identity.
Yeah. And by the way, to the audience listening, I have a video by the time this podcast is out, a video talking about and showing all the trustees voting on preserving these books and making them accessible to minors. Now, of course, I believe that all children in the Waterloo District School Board are minors, but all kids age 4 and up have access to these books. And I just wanted to bring back this, the original topic with the Million March protests and what has been happening. Obviously, situations like these, parents are not having a good time with the schools and what they're teaching. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Million March protests, what happened, and how the Waterloo District School Board handled the situation, because the Director of Education tripled down on this behavior. I think he's a disgrace, in my opinion. He has no leadership capabilities. And when you double down on defying parents, when you double down on taking a strong interest in the sexuality of minors and defending the materials that are in the schools, when you double down on policies and procedures that allow boys to go into the women's washrooms and change rooms, this is all very problematic. So let's talk about the Million March protests and how the leadership handled it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a letter sent out from the board, a statement sent out publicly. And so that's available if you want to take a look at it. But very, inflammatory, accusatory language that is, I mean, you and I would say it's inaccurate. I stood forth in the board saying, I can't speak to any private emails that you've had sent your way that are hateful. I can't speak to those because I don't know what I don't know. I'm not going to stand here and say that it's not happening. But I do know that the people who are speaking out and being called out for it, we're here on the front lines, yourself, myself, anyone who I know is in the front lines being known has probably spoken to me because they see that I'm open and they know, like, I'm making myself known, and so they know that they can come to talk to me about it. I've never had a conversation with anyone who demonstrated hate towards anyone, or some sort of motive or agenda outside of just keeping sexualized material outside of our schools, respecting, not denouncing other faiths, not even needing to promote any particular faiths, but just not denouncing faiths or disrespecting faiths, which is what happens ultimately. So I made that clear at my last delegation, saying, I think we're having a different conversation because whatever's happening and being discussed here at this board about what's happening in our community, about our marches, you haven't spoken to any of us. Have you had anyone talk to you? Have you had any of the board members talk to you outside of Trustee Mike Ramsey, Cindy Watson, and Bill Cody? Have you had anybody talk to you about your motives, your intentions?
So look, my opinion is this. Everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. The problem is that they change the subject and they don't want to discuss these things. It's not that they don't know. They all know exactly the kind
You
of
think so?
content that they deserve. 100%. Oh yeah, 100%. They're degenerates. As a matter of fact, there's an email that went out to all the trustees that shows the books in the library, screenshots the books, the quantity of the books, which library has these books, all of these things. There's been delegations I've personally read from the books. The trustees showed their disgust, not for the books, but for me reading the books, right? Which is this is the kind of behavior. And then you have other trustees, such as Trustee Woodcock. After the delegation, she just says, well, have you seen the other books? Maybe, the library also has English books, and like completely trying to derail the topic. This is what I believe that they're doing, right? And I believe the reason why we cannot have a conversation about this is not because they don't know. It's because they're so entrenched in their ideology that to me, it's hilarious to see them double down on such a basic thing. And I think that they're getting a ton of criticism when we talk about parents being hateful. Honestly, I hate having kids exposed to this stuff.
Oh yeah,
I
and I hate
hate this. Yeah,
absolutely hate their behavior,
their
and I'm allowed to.
behavior is completely unacceptable. To and I went through the grooming process in my delegation. What they're doing to minors, this is age 4 and up, who have access to this material. People should be jailed for this. This is the kind of stuff that would land you in jail, stuff that are being
Agreed.
openly promoted. And I believe at the very least, they need to resign. The absolute very least, right? But honestly, I'm happy that they're doubling down. I'm happy to see them doing it because people are seeing exactly the kind of behavior that they're promoting. This is a leadership problem. This is a leadership that's incapable of educating children.
Yeah. And I want to be clear because I know for you, David, you make these videos and they're short, they're not as nuanced. I think that and they're necessary because people have such small attention spans and they need the information. But I mean, we're talking about years of olive branches, right? We're talking about years of, can you just look at the books? Like, and let me know. Tell me. I just had a conversation with one of the trustees, Mina Wasim, just before my delegation on the 30th. And I was like, the delegations are different. We go on. It's more. We see it. We say our piece, and then it's like, okay, next. There isn't dialogue. There isn't discussion. The only questions that are allowed to be asked are questions of clarification if they're following the agenda, and then accusatory or deflective questions if we're not following the agenda. And we see that happening time and time again. And then, but I'm thinking this conversation, I want to understand, what am I not getting? How can you be voting the way you're voting? Just help me understand, what am I not getting? And I don't know that she's looked at the books. She couldn't even answer that question for me. Like I said, have you seen the books? Well, I know that there's a thorough with Mina, like, have you seen the books? Like, are you honestly? And then, I mean, and if they haven't responded back with, well, this is necessary because of X, Y, and Z. Why can't you just say that? In terms of wasting our time, because it drives me wild that we're here still talking about this when I'd really like to get to education for our children, right? And it's like, no, safety first. Let's get this stuff out so that we can like focus on education. But yet the time that is wasted, it's just wasted away without just being able to take a look at the book and be like, yeah, okay, oh, you're right. This is too graphic. Let's take that out. Let's take this one out and replace it with another inclusive book that isn't graphic. There's been no conversations like this, guys. Like, you have to understand at this point, I think it's absolutely criminal.
Best case scenario,
Absolutely criminal.
best case scenario, they're incompetent, especially if this subject comes up over and over and over again. They're incompetent. That's the best case scenario. Or worst case scenario, these are the values that they put onto the kids. And even a trustee like Mina, I know there's other trustees with religious beliefs. Do you think that she goes against her religious belief when she basically turns a blind eye to these books?
Absolutely, I do. If she's Muslim, of course. I mean, like,
Because
yeah, it's been interesting.
I stood
I
side
was,
by side with Muslim families, Christian
yep,
families,
yep.
atheist families, side by side for the protection of their children. What is going on through these trustees' head when they approve these books? You know, we've got woke Christians, we've got woke Muslims, we've got woke atheists, there's woke whatever, right? I think this in my opinion makes things even worse, right? It's not only that you vote in a certain way. First you got to like step on your faith and then you vote. It's like you go the extra step to show how degenerate you are in this behavior. You step on it and then you push forward, which is to me pretty crazy. But you know, the board also released this letter right before the protest, basically denouncing parents and saying that they're hateful. Then the
Yes.
protest happened, which I thought was a success. By the way, for anybody
Beautiful.
listening, you can
So,
check my YouTube channel. I've got my speech from the protest as well, and I give you my thoughts on the protests and what happened. It was awesome. And what happened after the protest? Because Jiwan, the director of Waterloo District School Board, he had quite the monologue coming, basically tripling down on this letter. So can we talk about what he said?
yeah, I mean, well, I don't have the letter in front of me, and it's going to make for a long story, I think. But like, yes, I mean, the march itself was beautiful. It was so diverse. There are people standing shoulder to shoulder that may not agree with everything that the person beside them, agrees with, which is fine. Like, that's what diversity is, people. And so it was beautiful. Things happened at the protest. I don't know if we should probably do something. I mean, the book tent, we set up the book tent. We had people that already knew that there were problems within the school system, and then they come into the book tent. They already knew about the books. And usually you make up something in your mind that's maybe even more intense than what it is, right? Because you're hearing all these things, and apparently, we're far right extremists that are instilling fear. So you would think that if we're instilling fear, then people have this idea that it's really bad. And then when they go and see it, they'd be like, oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was. But that's not what happened, right? These people come into the book tent, and I had women in tears. I had fathers. I had one dad who was very skeptical and said, yeah, I'm hearing that this probably isn't as big of a deal, and wanted to leave his contact so that he would know more information, and couldn't believe what was happening. So I think people really need to kind of open both of their eyes. But so we've got that went on as well, and then we made an open letter as a group, and so this is all in our Substack too, the EMPOWR Connect Substack. So hopefully people can maybe keep people who want to know a little bit more about what's happening in the Waterloo Region District School Board. There'll be more updates there too. But then, so we wrote this open letter, and we sent it directly to G1, CC'd the trustees as well. saying, we believe that, especially the Muslim community, because they were paramount in this movement, that they need to have an apology, right? Like, I don't need an apology. I really don't. But, there's a lot to this because, the letter that was sent out originally on the 19th of September, the day before the march, which was the 20th of September, was like, if you're paying attention, and even for those who are paying attention, like, it's really sneaky. I mean, you're talking about this is going to be hurtful or hateful to the LGBTQIA2 plus community. This is going to be hateful or hurtful to the Muslim community. And then, but you've got a huge Muslim community that's like leading the way in this as well, right? And so it's like, it's this cognitive dissonance. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And even with, Mina had mentioned in the last board meeting, oh, I've talked to the Muslim community. Okay, whatever Muslim community you're talking to, we're talking about the march. Have you talked to the Muslim community that's involved with the march? Like, these people are, anyway. So then there was that. Didn't respond. Okay. And then Trustee Cindy Watson brought a point forward saying, I received this letter from the Muslim Association of Kitchener, which was the same letter we sent out. We're all connected because we're all parents, with this movement. And so they sent out the same letter. We sent it to them. They agreed with it. And then they sent it out as well. And, EMPOWR, which is Parents of Waterloo Region, Educating Minds, Parents of Waterloo Region. And G1 denied that he knew about the letter. So, I mean, I can't say that he's lying because I don't know if he saw the letter, but we do know that it was sent directly to him, that all of the trustees were CC'd on that message, that we then put it on 2 days, two days later, we put it on Twitter, on the Substack, and we tweeted it out. We tagged the director on it. We tagged the Waterloo Region District School Board on it. So again, going back to, if you're incompetent and you're not paying attention to any of these things, maybe. But aside from like an actual phone call, hey, G1, did you get our letter or no? And so then last meeting, which was the 13th, he addressed it, which was basically tripling down on the letter. So I had no expectations going into that meeting. Like, and people were like, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's actually going to apologize? Do you think that he's going to at least say, well, I didn't mean it to, our intentions weren't for it to sound this way? Or do you think he's going to triple down? I mean, past experience, might dictate future experience. But I really didn't. I think because I'm a person of faith and I have lots of hope, I'm like, anything's possible. But
before you tell me, I know Jiwon has a pattern of playing stupid, playing incompetent, and in my opinion, he's not only a poor leader, a coward as well. He doesn't want to face the criticism. He's always hiding behind other people. And the thing is, there is no reason to give any benefit of the doubt because this has been a recurring theme. These items are brought over and over again. And actually, I've been involved in this long enough to notice that this has been an ongoing issue for a couple years and now really building up. This is now in the media. People are talking about these things that are happening. This is not just isolated to the board. They can't play. The thing is, they're cowards, and they are absolutely entrenched in this ideology, and they cannot help themselves. They must fall in line. They must go against their personal integrity. They must go against their personal religious beliefs. They must go against whatever whatever family instincts that they have that they would never do to their family. They must say the lie publicly. And
When you say they must, what do you mean by they
well,
must?
just imagine if G1 apologized and took things back, saying like, oh, parents are not that hateful. We believe that parents do know what's best for the kids. He cannot. He must continue saying,
Based on the consequences that would happen, or
well, yeah, like he just simply can't, because the entire procedure that he upholds, it would be turned over, right? Like he upholds procedures that drive a wedge between parents and students, essentially saying that the school board knows better than parents and that
Mm.
students must be protected from their parents. And to say otherwise would go against his entire philosophy. Like, he simply cannot. And at this point, to simply expect and have wishful thinking that he will change his stance is completely unrealistic. Jiwon needs to
I'm going
resign.
to say you can, G1. You can
He
do it.
can't do
I'm
it.
going to say, G1, I know you're watching this, and I think you can do it. And I think you should.
I think he should do it. Technically, he should. Technically, he could, but he can't, because it's been years of indoctrination and the same thing. Like he believes it at this point.
Yeah. We also forgot something, David, that happened in there, which was the secret letter to students. Do you remember that?
I did a
Because
video on that, on the secret
that came
letter.
out, okay, because that came within this whole thing too, right? Like, that was right after the march. And then, oh, and that's the other big thing that could be a whole other video, is connecting the marches and the work we're doing to protect our children and to keep sexualized content out of the schools and to stop sexualizing our children, um, to link that to hate crimes. And so that was brought up at the board. I had an outburst there, because it was linked to basically these parents or the march is directly, and they're stating it as fact. This is ideology, people. When you state something that is theory or an opinion as fact, and you have authoritative positions, these people are in authoritative positions stating it as fact. You would think that it is valid. Okay. No, it is not. They state it, the march caused, hateful behavior or a hate crime afterwards. When my question is, have you ever thought that it's what you're doing in the board that's causing this behavior, and not necessarily hateful behavior, maybe even just rebellion, maybe just like kids being sick and tired of having this stuff shoved down their throat all day every day, having certain people being amplified, having their own faiths being denounced as if they're hateful if they don't abide by your pride, which to me, in my faith, pride itself is a sin. So I mean, like, you can't you can't expect children. I mean, I know kids who threw like, so there's so much to do with this, okay? And so I don't want, throwing rocks at people is not okay, which we don't have the whole story there, but we will have the whole story. The truth will come out. So we'll get that story. But you can think of like bullying or kids throwing rocks at another kid. That's not necessarily hate. Like, it's not okay behavior, but it doesn't mean it's hateful. It's incredibly wrong, incredibly rude, incredibly mean. Yes, all those things. It does not mean it's hate. These people, it's like they have no idea what hate
So
means. They
basically,
don't even know the definition of
so
it.
basically,
So
hate to them is anybody that goes against what they believe. It's
against,
against their ideology.
or makes them feel badly for what they believe, or makes them feel shameful for what they believe, or doesn't celebrate them for what they believe.
Good.
Like, how idiotic is
Good.
this?
They should
Like,
they should not feel celebrated. The tone that they give and the examples that they give, you could see them at the school board, how they bully people, how they try to undermine people, and then they're surprised that other people are acting in the same manner. No, this behavior should not be celebrated. This is why I keep saying they are incompetent leaders. They should be removed from leadership, and I hope that people wake up to this. And just before we wrap things up, Christina, um, that monologue, tell me just in a couple minutes what you
oh,
think
monologue.
about what G1 said. just to wrap things up?
You know what, David? It's just, he tripled down on it. So none of those things happened. There was obviously not an apology. There's obviously no backpedaling, or at least saying like, well, my intentions weren't this, or, we didn't want to make it seem in this way. It was like, well, we said it because there's evidence. And then his evidence is not evidence. It's an opinion. It's a difference of opinion. And, he linked, he linked it to things that were on the main website of like organizers, I don't know, in Ottawa, I believe. Listen, you didn't talk to anybody from the Waterloo Region District community. Like, you didn't talk to us. So you're linking your letter and your open statement of the Waterloo Region District School Board Corp to things that are happening in Ottawa or Toronto or something else. And regardless, even those things are just differences of opinions, right? So it was, again, a triple down. He related it to racism. He related it to suicidal ideologies. He weaponized the suicides again. He even brought his own personal, like, he mentioned something about, this is, this seems to be a reoccurring thing since I've been the director, as if it's a personal thing. G1, you're the director of education. Like, that's why you're not being targeted as a human being. This is your position. This is your role. And then instead of, and again, it's the victim mentality, right? Where it's like, oh, this is a personal thing. They just don't like me. No, 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 no. Why don't you start thinking about, why has this always, since I've been director, why am I getting all of this since I've been director?
Mm.
Look within and see what you have responsibility or accountability for in this circumstance.
You see that it's a zero, big fat zero responsibility and accountability. Like I said, everything he does is just coward. He's not a leader. He's a victim artist. He does two things. I want everybody to pay attention. He's a two-trick pony. One, he plays the sexuality card, which nobody cares. And two, he plays the race card, which nobody cares. Because on both of these things, nobody wants him discussing his sexual preferences with the minors in the school.
Much sexual preferences.
Yeah.
No.
He can keep that in his own life. Anyways, Cristina, thanks so much for bringing us up to speed on this. I feel like we can talk about this for a long time. I'm very encouraged to have seen a couple thousand parents show up, not only parents, grandparents, and people who didn't have kids, and siblings and everybody over there. Everybody stood shoulder to shoulder, regardless of their faith, regardless of their sex, regardless of their age or their skin color, for the protection of children. And this is going really well. And, anybody that wishes to take part of their own rescue, not sit at home and complain, but actually get involved, speak your mind, stop being afraid of these degenerates that are basically going after your kids. If you're not going to protect your kids, who's going to protect them? If you're not going to spend time with your kids and fill their minds up, who's going to spend time with them? And what are their minds going to be filled up? This is a great opportunity for parents to come back to the roles that parents have and the responsibility and accountability. Don't give your power to the school. The school does not know better than you. Be a responsible parent, be accountable, and hold the school accountable and responsible for what they're supposed to do, and that is educate kids with academics, basic academics, not political indoctrination and ideologies. Cristina, thanks so much for coming by again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thanks for all the hard work.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to get any more information, I have Cristina's delegations up on the YouTube videos, on my YouTube channel as well. Feel free to have a look at that. I have the March protests over there. And of course, one of the latest videos that are going to be out is showing how the trustees essentially voted to keep pornographic books accessible to minors as early as age 4. So if that interests you, have a look. Until next time, everybody, take care.